Hello everybody, this is Valencia and welcome to my channel Balloons and Business, where I show you the business of balloon and event decor. So today I'm going to show you how I made this Here Comes the Sun theme balloon garland from beginning to end. This was for a baby shower and I had a very busy weekend, so I had to pre-prep this balloon garland. So I'm going to show you guys how I did that and give you guys some tips on how to pre-prep your setups before actually going to the event location. So if you want to see how I did this, just stay tuned. So right now I'm just quickly showing you how I'm putting this stand together. I got this stand off of a website called Fashion and Fascinating. I actually purchased it through Etsy, but Fashion and Fascinating has their own website that you can purchase directly from them. They were the seller on Etsy, but they do have their own website. And basically it's very easy. Just click it together. They have the numbers and you just match the numbers together as you just click the pieces together. I like using these type of backdrops because they're easy to transport. You can take them down very easily when you're done and store them in a bag so they don't take up a lot of storage space. And when you assemble them, these arches are very lightweight. So this is an open arch. So the center of this arch is going to be open and the balloons is going to be going through. Now you can also purchase these type of frames from cvlinens.com. I know they specialize in tablecloths and stuff like that, but they do sell these open arch frames. And I actually purchased the cover for this from CV Linens. So there's a fabric cover that's going to go over this frame, and I purchased that from CV Linens because they sell like frames with this exact same dimension. So that's the cover right there. It's open-ended, and before I put the feet on this frame, I'm going to put the cover on first, and you're just going to pull it over the frame from end to end and get out all of the wrinkles, and then put the feet on the backdrop. So now it's time to make my balloon garland. So I'm going to blow up 2 balloons at a time, and then I'm going to round them out by pushing some air out. And then I'm going to tie them together into dupes. Now these are 11-inch Tuftex brand balloons in the color goldenrod. And I use 5-inch, 11-inch, and 17-inch in goldenrod. I also used a matte pastel yellow in Batalitex, 5-inch, 11-inch, and 18-inch. And I also used a cream colored balloon in Sempertex brand in 5-inch, 11-inch, and 18-inch. So once I tie all my balloons into dupes, I'm going to twist my dupes into clusters. So each of my clusters will have 3 dupes, 2 11-inch dupes and 1 dupe with a 17 or 18-inch balloon and an 11-inch balloon. And now I'm going to take a 260Q balloon. So that long stretchy balloon right there is called a 260Q balloon. And I'm going to tie it together into like a rubber band. And the reason why I use these instead of an actual rubber band is because they are more elastic than rubber bands, in my opinion. Now I'm going to take the 260Q and I'm going to wrap it around a couple balloons in one cluster. And then I'm going to take another cluster, place it on top of the first one, and then wrap that 260Q balloon around at least 2 to 3 balloons in that new cluster. You want to make sure you wrap it around at least 2 to 3 balloons because you want as many points of connection as possible to get a nice tight fit between the clusters. It is also recommended that you wrap the 260Q around the 11-inch balloons, not the 17 or 18-inch ones, because you can fit more balloons in the 260Q when you wrap it around the smaller balloons. So this right here is my balloon garland base, and I have 6 clusters connected. Now I'm not exactly sure how many clusters I needed, so I started off with 6 and I'm going to add clusters as needed. So I have a safety pin and a 260Q balloon, and I'm going to use that to attach it to the fabric backdrop. Just be careful that you don't snag the fabric. So you're just going to find the balloon that's closest to that 260Q, that safety pin, because you don't want to pull it too much. You don't want it to snag the backdrop, and you're just going to wrap the 260Q around it. And now I am going to attach another cluster because it's not touching the floor yet. You see there's a gap right there. So that's another cluster of 3 dupes of balloons, or 6 balloons. And now I'm going to be attaching some smaller clusters of 4 balloons or 2 dupes using a 260Q. And I'm doing this to beef up my balloon garland. So I'm trying to accomplish a curviness to this balloon garland. I don't just want this thick mass of balloons coming out of the center of that arch. So I'm going to spread out the bottom of that balloon garland and make it more narrow as I get to the top. So I'm showing you how I'm adding my clusters. I'm just going to wrap that 260Q around one balloon in the pre-existing garland, then wrap it back around the cluster I'm adding, and then tie the 260Q into itself. And that's how I'm getting a nice snug fit for my clusters. So as I'm going up the balloon garland, I'm going to reduce the amount of balloons I'm using. So you see that cluster of 4 right there? I'm going to take one of those dupes out and use the smaller dupe so it won't be too full or crowded at the top. So hopefully you can see that as I'm spreading out the bottom of that balloon garland some more by adding more clusters, I'm creating a shape. Because the balloon garland is not the same thickness throughout, it creates a natural curviness to it. So a really important tip with your balloon garlands is you want to make sure that the balloon garland is attached to your backdrop securely. So I'm connecting it again right there on the left-hand side with those cream balloons. So now I'm just going over the balloon garland and adding in some dupes using either 260Q balloons or just twisting them into the balloon garland. And then I'm going to add this large 24-inch balloon at the top because I want the top to look more fuller. And one of the easiest ways to make a balloon garland look fuller is to add in large balloons. Now I'm using a 260Q to add this in, but normally I would just tie the neck of the balloon. But I know for many of you, it's easier to do the 260Q method. So now I'm going to add my 5-inch decorators, and I'm adding them in clusters of 4. I cut my 260Qs in half. And then I'm just going to tie one end to the 5-inch cluster and the other end to the pre-existing balloon garland. And I'm adding these in to fill in gaps and to add more dimension to my balloon garland. And as you can see, it's making the balloon garland look a lot more polished and put together. Well, that's just my opinion. So it's the next day, and now I'm going to take my balloon garland down so I can transport it. But first I'm going to break it down into 2 pieces. So I'm just going to take the 260Q off of that light yellow cluster right there. And then I'm going to use the safety pins on each of these pieces to mark where the balloon garland was on the backdrop. So this is how I packed my car. I did not take down my arch. I left it assembled with the fabric cover left on. And I put both pieces of the garland in there, as well as all my supplies and extra clusters. So now I'm at the event location. It's a little bit windy out here, so I made sure to secure my backdrop first and foremost. And now I'm reattaching my garland to the backdrop stand. So I decided to remove that 260Q with the safety pin and wrap it around one of the light yellow balloons, because I noticed that there wasn't enough stability for that light yellow cluster in the wind. So I decided to attach the balloon garland at the light yellow cluster and not the cream cluster for more stability. And I'm going to add the other portion of the balloon garland. And I'm just wrapping that 260Q back around a couple of balloons in that light yellow cluster. So now I'm trying to position this balloon garland so it looks as close as it did to when I made it at the house. So I'm battling that top light yellow cluster, and I'm going to deal with that later. But right now I'm just twisting my clusters around so that the 5-inch decorators are facing outward. And that lets me know that those clusters are facing in the right direction and they're looking closer to the way the balloon garland was when I first made it. And now it's time for me to battle that light yellow cluster again. So I forgot to bring my ladder, which made this a whole lot more difficult. Had I had my ladder, I would have been able to solve this in a couple minutes. But since I didn't, I was really stretching, trying to add on more balloons to that yellow cluster and make it thicker. And as you can see, I'm running in circles, going behind and then running to the front to see how it looks as I'm adding in my clusters. So just a word of advice, make sure you bring all the necessary equipment that you need. Make sure you double check that you have it all because it will save you time. All in all, this took me about 45 minutes to set up at the location, which is still good. That still was within my goal of getting this setup done within the hour. I'm just tying a brick to the bottom of this balloon garland so it will stop moving with the wind. So I'm going to be adding some more clusters right there to spread that bottom out. And each cluster has 3 dupes or 6 balloons. And I'm adding some 5-inch decorators as well. And I have to say, I really love how the shape of this garland came out. Initially, I forgot to reconnect the balloon garland to the backdrop on the left-hand side, but eventually I remembered. With an outdoor setup, you especially want to make sure that your balloon garland is securely connected to the backdrop so it will not move with the wind. So here's the finished product to the Here Comes the Sun balloon backdrop setup. Now, if you want all the details on the materials I use, from the balloons, the brands, the colors, as well as where I bought my backdrop stand and the fabric cover, just check the description box below this video. And I will also be posting a tutorial on how I made the vinyl lettering for this backdrop. I use my Cricut machine, and so I will pin the link to the top of the comment section. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, go ahead on and like it, and please subscribe, and you'll get notifications on future videos on ballooning and event decor. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.